All right, thank you all for joining us. We're right at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have started recording today's event, so that's your heads up. If you're not comfortable being on an event that's recorded, you may drop off now. My name is Ivy. I'm the marketing manager here at iLink, and I just wanted to welcome you all again and thank you for joining us today. We're excited to get started with the event. I'm going to hand it over to our presenter here in just a second, but I just wanted to quickly share few housekeeping items. I know this is probably not anyone's first virtual event, but just a reminder to stay muted so that everybody is able to limit the background noise and focus on the presentation today. We would love for today's event to be engaging and participatory. So if, throughout the event you think of something that you want to ask, please feel free to go ahead and drop that question in the chat and we'll try to get to those as we go. And then we'll also reserve some time for questions at the end as well. Yeah, thank you all again for joining us. If you're interested in learning about any of iLink's other solutions, I'll go ahead and put the link to our website in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ivy. Let me share my screen just a second. Can you see my screen? Bharat, can you please?
Yes,
yeah, we can.
All right. Thank you, Ivy. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. So today, the topic it's around reimagining business intelligence, with the conversational approach, right? Just to carry on from what Ivy gave us the introduction. iLink Digital, and we are a family of multiple entities, each one of them specializing in an area, which is close to heart. So in that way, Purple Slate, I head Purple Slate. And what do we do? I mean, we are a company, specializing on conversational AI and natural language-based interaction. And in fact, this particular use case that we're going to talk about today around conversational AI within business intelligence, it's one of our core offering, where we are trying to reimagine the way information is consumed today, right? So that's me. And before Purple Slate, and pretty much a significant portion of my time, I was with Wall Street. With Pershing, Bank of New York Mellon, and before that with FedEx. And my career has been pretty much around in the data science area. And just 5 years back, I can call it as a midlife crisis. I left the job, and then along with a co-founder, a friend of mine, we started this company called Purple Slate. The fundamental premise being, we increasingly see the computers or devices getting better at understanding the language we speak. So what we today, use, Alexa, Siri, or Google Assistant, those are like the very initial stages of this particular, the language interface arena. Perhaps for some very simple use cases, but more and more, this concept around language interface has very profound impact in the way we interact with computers, right? I think that's the area we specialize on. So that's a very, very quick intro about my company and then the startup. And then as I said, we specialize on this particular space called conversational AI and language interfaces, voice interfaces, smart transcription, telephone, intelligent virtual telephony. Those are all some of the applications which we build. And one such specialized area is around a family of products called Kia, which I'll talk about more today, which is around consuming information and analytics, right? So with that introduction, so let me just quickly run through an agenda. So I have close to a little over an hour, and the last 15 more minutes, I would spend on a demo, giving a lot of examples and show you what our platform has to offer and also some use cases. But just before that, just to set some context, I thought, okay, it will be just take you through a few slides just to set some context on this particular area. And if you're already working on this page, or if you're already familiar with this one, please bear with me. And especially when we have a diverse set of audience, so sometimes it does help to set some context. So that way, right, I want to talk about this particular one, and all of us, I would say, or rather many of us, would have experienced a conversational AI in a very simple form. The one, which most of us are used to, as I said, could be the Alexa, Siri, or the Google Assistant, or the chat bot, the small interface, which is pretty much there in almost every website today, and you have those interactions, you talk to them, and some of them are smart, some of them are, and what I would call it, not so good user experience. The responses or the interactions are kind of very mechanical, not much of really natural language based interactions are supported and all that. But that is changing, right? In fact, when we say the rise of conversational AI platforms, so these are some key aspects which are very, very important. Can it really talk? When we say talk, can it really text or chat? So which we talk about the interface modes. How much does it support the voice and text mode? Can it really understand? This is one extremely important characteristic of a conversational application. Just like how you would take the human interactions. When we talk to fellow human being, the key aspect of the conversation is the first part, which is to do with the listening or the understanding aspect, right? So that way, the same principle apply even to machines. How good is the language understanding of these conversation interfaces, right? Can it learn continuously? I mean, again, you can put the human metaphor here in the sense not all of us are good at everything, and then sometimes we learn as we talk. So same thing kind of applies here as well. The machine or the chat conversational application may not understand the question which you asked today, but how does it really learn or evolve over a period of time? How do the machine learning models get retrained over a period of time and all that? Does it know? I mean, at the end of the day, this is a very, very critical aspect. Why do we even use this interface? Because either we are looking for an information or we want that smart assistant to do something. So definitely the utility value is very, very critical, right? And can it be useful? I mean, it again goes back to what I was just saying. Hey, does it really help me do things better? I mean, most of the use case pattern for conversational AI are around augmenting human capabilities. So does it really help me in any way, right? So these are some very, very critical, or rather, principles on which conversational AI applications are evaluated, right? So applying the same principle on the information arena, right? I mean, we talked about today, we're going to talk more about the business intelligence area. So if you really look at it, this is kind of a high-level summary of how information systems have evolved over a period of time. For many of you, or rather, who have been there in this industry for more than 20 plus years, we know, I mean, the initial days of consuming information or reports were through the mainframe computers, the very early days of data processing, right? From there, you had the different business intelligence reports. You had the spreadsheet applications becoming popular, with the advent of personal computers, and then you had the era of business intelligence and dashboard, which very much exists today. Almost every company today, they have a huge investment, or rather, this is one of the primary ways in which they consume information, which is through business intelligence and dashboards, various metrics, scorecards, and all that. And then, you had the smartphone generation, made gave rise to something called as a mobile business intelligence. We wanted to have that information in our smartphone 24/7 on the go, wherever we are, we needed access to that information, right? So if you really think about it, I mean, what you see at the top, the days, or rather the amount of time it took for us to get access to that information has been shrinking, from weeks, days to hours. Unfortunately, still it takes a lot of time today, to get access to information, but definitely it is kind of shrinking. So what we really see as the next stage, what I would even attribute it to, we are a Google generation, right? Every question today, or a Bing generation, however you want to call it, whatever search engine we use today, right? Any information, we just go and ask the search engine. That is what we call as momentary information need. Everything, hey, what is the score today? And then, how's the market doing? And all these, what is the weather? All these information, even related to a personal life, Similar experience, many of the companies are now bringing in even for the enterprise data, right? And so that's what we really call as momentary information need. All of us, we need access to certain information at this point in time. And that's where we see a new wave of products, a new wave of solutions around conversational insights really getting useful, which I'll just talk about, with a lot of examples, right? Just to set some context in terms of the reality of the data-rich world today, right? I mean, the amount of data we capture is just growing in abundance, to the point that we're not really deleting anything, right? Increasing momentary data needs. Almost any data-driven organization today, needs access to the data for so many things. I mean, right? And again, those are pretty much still consumed through the traditional ways of BI reports and dashboards, but at the same time, as I said, being a Google generation, we are looking for that information in a very, very quick and easy access mode, right? But at the same time, the number three is also important. I mean, it's a very common phenomenon today. Users, if you go and ask them, they still struggle to get access to quality data, right? And the number four, in the sense, what we really, when you have so much amount of data, there is only few questions you can really ask, which we call as the known nodes, where you even have an idea of what question to ask, right? But with the data volume, the variety, and what really matters more these days is around what is called as the unknown unknowns. Hey, I didn't even know this pattern existed or this kind of relationship existed in the data set. How do we uncover those kind of insights, right? I think this is a very, very common data problem today, right? And the number 5 and 6, it is more to do with the way, the kind of tool sets which are there today, right? Different tool sets. I mean, today, the typical way the information is even consumed, someone looks at a dashboard, this number doesn't look good. What do? We take a screenshot, send it to somebody in an email, hey, can you look at this? Or we cut and paste that screen image in a collaboration platform, ask them. That's the way the collaboration kind of happens, right? Is there a way we could reimagine this? Right? I think that those are some of the drivers. The second thing is what we call as, we all have questions and more of I need to know now moments, right? This is the reason, if you really look at those questions, this is the reason why we are, or rather, we consume business intelligence reports and dashboards. I mean, not necessarily because, we needed a whole bunch of charts and all that. We are basically trying to get answers to questions, right? What pages do users spend most of the time? If it is like your typical Google Analytics, question. What channel do customers in the age group 20? All these are questions we have in our mind, or we have, we need to get answers to for our decision making or to take actions. What we in turn do today, with the traditional tools, is to get answers to these and consume that information. But if you really look at it, I mean, all we have in our minds, for decision making are a bunch of questions, right? So when these are questions, wouldn't it be more natural to get answers straight to the point rather than consuming it the traditional way through reports and dashboards, right? I think that's where this new technology around conversational AI could potentially be leveraged, which we are building it as a solution. I mean, imagine, or rather, you can even put it this way. In the absence of a BI report or a tool, if you have a human being who is more knowledgeable on this, what do we really do? We go and ask that person, these kind of questions, and then get answers. Is there a way we can replicate the same behavior in a conversational mode, right? That is one of the drivers for this, right? And the other thing is, generally, I mean, even with the human psychology, the way we consume information is like this. We all have a question in mind, what we call is I need to know now moment, and we get an answer, and then that answer kind of triggers follow-up questions, and then we take, either we ask a follow-up or we take a decision. This cyclical ways in which we consume information. In fact, as they say, when you really have more information, or when you're really becoming knowledgeable, the best outcome is it raises more questions than answers, right? I think that's the way we consume information. And so that is also one reason where we are saying, hey, this mode is more tuned for a conversational approach, right? So how do we really get our answers today? If you look at it here, if I have a need, I mean, even if I put a human in the middle of it, I ask a trusted source, or imagine, replace the trusted source with a search engine. We get an answer. We ask a follow-up question, and then, in that cycle kind of goes in loop till we feel we have all the right answers, and then, we take action. That action could be sharing it with others, or making a decision, or taking some actions and all that, right? This is the very, very high level, in terms of how we really consume information, or how we get answers, right? But look at how the analytics tool sets, or the analytics world of today is, right? What we call as death by metrics. I mean, sometimes in very large organizations, it's a very common phenomenon. There are more dashboards than even human being, and so many charts and visuals and data reports for multiple reasons. I mean, of course, they are built for a very valid reason. It's not that somebody got bored and then built all these charts and reports. Absolutely not. And but at the same time, there is also this information overload. I mean, sometimes one of the reasons, even with the X number of charts and metrics and dashboards, still people struggle to get the right answers because they don't have the right one, when they really need it the most, right? So that's why, I mean, there are a lot of statistics, whether it is Gartner, Forrester, and all, or even there is a HBR study which says the ROI from analytics investment has been, traditionally been really very, very poor in many large organizations, or rather, it is not commensurate to the amount of investments they make. Still, there is someone who feels bad, or rather, they don't have the right information, right? So this is one of the very, very common problems today, death by metrics, right? The second thing is information access, especially for non-technical users or business. It's still too technical. You do have a lot of these self-service analytics tools, but still, what they really became a self-service analytics tools. Now you have also become more engineering, right? You really need to do a lot of coding, or rather, some amount of tweaking and technical stuff, you need to do before you can even consume that output, right? So, see, as I said, many of these stuff, I mean, say for example, there are some very powerful Excel users, but you really need to be a master of that, and then, still for you to, before you even start consuming that information, right? This is a very, very common problem in many of the organizations. There is a painful delay in access to information. So if you really think about the cycle, the box which is in red, that's where it has been really painful in many organizations, where getting access to that information takes from days to months. Most of the interaction still happens through emails. You ask somebody, they run some queries, produce some report, and then they send it back, and then you say that, hey, no, this is not what I need. I need a couple of more columns. Then you go back and forth. So this kind of iterative, the way the process in which it happens, it's been really painful in many companies, and it's one of the biggest pain point. In fact, if you contrast this to the way we consume information through the search engine, right? I mean, think about it. We just go on, there is a very hardly a situation where we really do not get what we're really asking for, right? I mean, it is more to do with the way that information is organized, which is really helping us to get the answer we need, right? I think that kind of experience, is there a way we could replicate the same experience within an enterprise? That is one of our attempt as well, right? So now, I mean, again, just to supplement it with one of the stats, right? This is from a Gartner study where it says typical information workers spend 20 to 30% of the day looking for information, not really consuming. There is a lot of time spent in, finding the right information, to use and all that. So, and the other thing is, I just wanted to tell you more from a technical perspective. With the way the technology has evolved, I mean, so today the information access challenge is not about the capture and store. The storage technology has evolved significantly. The unit cost of storage has come down drastically. That's one of the reasons, we hardly delete anything today, right? So what has really happened is, as we have started accumulating so much amount of data, the ping has shifted to the right side, where it is more about how do we get access to quality information, or rather, get the answer I need, right? So it is more like the needle in a haystack problem. which is very common metaphor, which is used in the data science field and all that, right? So so when I have so much amount of information, where do I, how do I really get the answer? Especially I have an answer, to a question, which I have in mind, for a decision making. So the challenge has really gone more towards the information access side of it, right? And then the other thing is also about the timeliness and speed of access. I mean, not after days or weeks. How do I have a question, I need a particular answer at this particular moment. That's what I call as, the momentary information need. How do I get access to that? I think it is more to do with the way, how a life has become changed over a period of time, right? I mean, all of, as I said, we're all a Google generation. Anything and everything, we just go to the search engine and ask. The similar expectation is now, I mean, we want that similar experience even on the enterprise setup, right? So the other thing, I just wanted to talk about is whenever we talk about information access, I mean, this is a common metaphor used on the usability side, findability and discoverability. I mean, the findability is, I have a question, how easy it is for someone to locate the known data, or rather, the question I have in mind, the known. The other aspect of it, which is the discoverability, which is equally important, especially in a very large big data environment, is you don't even know some of these patterns which exist, right? So when you really start analyzing, when you look at these, or rather when you ask multiple questions, that's interesting, I didn't even know this, it's because of this, right? So how easy it is for someone to encounter this information. I mean, I did not explicitly ask that question, but still I was presented an insight, which I found to be very useful. I mean, this is again a very common phenomenon, or experience we do in the search engines. You ask a question, you also have a bunch of, by the way, the people who search this, or rather, this is the follow-up. It does a lot of smart suggestions and all that. That is more to do with the discoverability of information, right? Now, so what's the solution? I mean, we just talked about, hey, it is too technical, it takes forever, there is dashboards another right way. So how do we reimagine this, the information problem for the modern age, right? Which we even call it as the next generation. I mean, not just today. How do we think, this information or the analytics space is going to be the next 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, right? I mean, definitely not. I mean, it is going to go through tremendous change, right? So that's where, some of our solutions are rather, the products, the platform which we are working on, we feel could really help. So what we're really saying is when your users have momentary questions on data, right? Don't let them get overwhelmed with large reports and dashboards and metrics. Just how can we really let them just ask the question and provide the answer, right? I mean, just like how we would, ask a human being, or rather, not just a question and answer. We engage in a conversation, right? We engage in a conversation, a meaningful conversation, which goes back and forth till we get access to that information, right? So how do we replicate the behavior? In the language we speak, as I said, I mean, it is also more to do with, I mean, the fundamental premise I started, where I said the devices or the computers are really getting better at understanding the language we speak. So the reason we used a graphical user interface, or rather any other interface which exists today, it's because that's the only way, that the machines understood. The machines only understood binaries. Later, it became machine language, programming languages, and all the other interfaces and all that. I mean, that was because the machines could not understand the language which we spoke, right? Now that is changing. So if this is a possibility now, where I can just ask this question, hey, what is the incurred claim ratio on a travel protect plan introduced, just like how I ask a fellow human being. Why do I need to learn a query language or an Excel sheet or a graphical user interface to get that information? Why can't I just ask that question, right? That is the new possibility which is being thrown open by technologies around conversational AI. I mean, all these are again the examples. I mean, these are not just made up. I mean, these are all some solutions which we have built for some of our customers. Whether it is in the engineering space, health insurance space, and all that. So this is the way we are saying, or rather, this is an example of what we really mean by conversational insights, right? I mean, there is again stats from Gartner which says natural language based queries are really going to become extremely popular. Rather, this is one of the significant ways in which the information or the BI space would become, BI output would be consumed. And especially the fourth one, which you see there, the pets treated for influenza with prescribed, prednisolone. All these are not just English; these are also complicated medical vocabulary, right? How does a machine understand this vocabulary and respond back, right? Those are all some of the challenges as well as definite possibilities today, with which is available with conversational AI. So here's an example. For conversational AI. So say, for example, if the question you are in a meeting, or this is the question you have. Hey, which region is really doing well in selling product XYZ, right? There are two ways in which I can provide the answer. The way it is done today, that can be a sales dashboard or an operational dashboard, which we've been using, which has a collection of metrics. I can try to get the answer, right? This is the way it is done today. Imagine if this is replaced by something like this. Hey, which region is doing well in electronics? So it says, hey, what? It is the West region with the sales of, say, $3.1 million. Along with that, so this is the findability part, where you got the answer for the question you had in mind. The other thing I told you about is now it's a discussion. Hey, by the way, it's been trending down. Here is a trend. It has been trending, or rather trending up, in the last 6 months. And this is the particular product, which is really contributing to this, right? That is the insight which would make that response that much more useful, right? So from a very standard static response, which is on the left side, which we have done today with, the dashboards and metrics, we are now moving into a conversation space. Now this, you can basically not just this question, you can just keep asking more questions, and then, which really helps you make a decision or take some actions. That is, this is one of the easiest examples I could give, for conversational insights, right? And the other reason is also, if today, we are consuming information through reports, dashboards, or Excel sheets, how is this, again, the question which I posed, how do you think, this would even evolve in the next 5 years for the AI first generation, right? That's where we really need tools which are reimagined for this, the modern enterprises, or for the next Gen Z users and all that. Right? Any questions so far before I just quickly talk about our particular solution, which is a platform called Kia? Any questions, comments so far? All right, great. So we call it, this whole approach of business intelligence, we call it talk to your data, so it's basically you're engaging in a conversation on your data. So Kia is a platform, which we built. So say, for example, if the question is like this, hey, show me the daily trend of policies in the state of Idaho for the squatters by breaking it down by something. So it responds back with an answer like this, right? That is a chart. There is also a whole bunch of metrics which are related to that, and is one of example of how conversational insights kind of work. Okay. So what exactly is Kia? Which is the platform. It is the words highlighted in purple are the one which are equally very, very important here. It is a virtual data analyst. As I said, try to equate it to a human data analyst who could be of help, right? It can mine millions of rows of data. In fact, there is no limit to it. It's just to give you an indication. It can go after very large volumes of data, and it can provide answers and more. Because, as I said, some of these answers are also followed by insights, right? And in the language you speak, right? So that is what Kia is. Kia is basically a software application which can do this for you, right? Or in other words, see, I showed you the cycle earlier, right? In terms of how we really go about getting answers for our data, right? So in this cycle, the circles on green is what Kia is going to do. Kia really becomes the trusted source for you, and Kia is going to get you the answer. Sorry, apologies. I just need to get some water. Just give me 10 seconds. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. So let me go continue. So yeah, I needed some glass of water. So that's what Kia is. Kia is basically your data analyst, which could play the role of being the trusted source, right? So, or in other words, what we're really trying to do is, how do you turn some data set like this? It could be your enterprise data sitting in large volume of data lakes, a big data source and all that, into the conversational experience, which I just showed, where you were able to ask a question and then Kia produced that answer, right? How do you convert that? That's what the platform Kia really helps you do that, right? Or you take a data set, train it on your enterprise data, and start talking to Kia, and then it produces those answers, right? This data set can be, as I said, any of your enterprise data source. It could be whatever. I've just given a few examples here. It really doesn't matter. We have an ability to integrate with any of the enterprise data sources, and then train Kia on that for it to answer. So now, as we all know, in many of the enterprise setups, the data, it is not just a one-time process. The data grows in multiple ways, either through streams or microbatch. There are various ways in which the data gets updated, or or even on request and all that. So you can set up pipelines to refresh the data so that the answers you get also changes, over a period of time with the new additions of data, right? And it is available. I'll quickly show some. A demo of all these. It is available as what we call as a question widget, or a chat application, or in a mobile platform. And this is the ecosystem. Very soon, I'll show a demo of what it is. So the Kia Studio is more of a low-code platform, where you can train your data set, and you have the other options, in terms of how for you to really consume the information or consume the insights in different ways, right? It is a low-code framework. It's a completely white-labeled application. And it's what we do is we just kind of have to do a few configurations to make it available for the enterprise. It reflects your brand and all that, right? In fact, there are instances. Say Kia is the name of our platform. The implementations are like they give different names like Oscar, Ginger, Engineering, Twinkle. That's the way the platform gets installed, or rather implemented at different places. Some high-level features on what K can do. As I said, it is omni-channel, supports very large data sets, and you can ask questions in simple English constructs, and it responds back in voice, text, as well as visuals, right? And of course, the last 2 points, I can't stress it enough, in the sense, any data management application, it really has to have a very good secured layer. So we have role-based access controls, we have ways to take care of PII data, and there is also managed data governance layer, in terms of how you define the glossaries, how you define, the metadata and all that. All these layers, come integrated as part of the platform. So why do we have these, the low-code platform features, or how do these features really help? The key differences with time to market. How do we really get onboarded or get some of these applications, implemented in a very, very short period of time. That is the whole intent of having a low-code platform like this. Right? So what does Kia bring? In a summary, a simplest of the conversational interface with the ability to, this is a summary of what it really does. So with this, let me just quickly show you an example of what this application is, and then how we can use this. Right? See, for a moment, take a data set like this. In fact, for the sake of demo, I've just taken one simple data set, in an Excel sheet or a CSV. In fact, it can connect to any of the enterprise data sets. That's how it is, right? So if this is the data set I have, if I really want to convert this, into a conversational application, right? I'll just show a demo of this whole process. So this is the Kia Studio, the interface. So once I have already signed in, so say for example, I onboard this data set. Okay. So now, I'm just going to connect to a data set. So let's just take, let me take the one, which I just had. So this is basically an information on the bird strikes by different aircrafts, across the world, right? So it is. So I can give a name for this. So let me call it as a bird strikes demo. So let me go here, and so it does. So what Kia Studio does is, it does quite a bit of stuff, from the data glossary part, right? So one simple example I can do is, say for example, you have something called as, there is a column called species and all. Now, I just want to call it as birds, right? And so let me click here. Continue with this. So what is this data set? It just asks a couple of questions. What is this data set about? It is about. You also say, hey, you can also call it as incidents. So with this, I'm just done. So in few seconds, it's going to get that application ready for you. I'll just hang in for 1 second. Okay, so I have this, now, I have this application ready, and then, I can invite others or something. Let me just show you what exactly this does, right? So this is the data set, which I just onboarded. So let me go and do a chat in this particular one, right? So this is a very simple chat interface on this. So this is the data set, which we had, all these attributes which we just onboarded and all that. Now, I can just ask a question like, hey, so it just gave me a whole bunch of, it starts answering questions now, right? The accidents by the airline. So now, there are too many. I'm just looking at, hey, show me. So it says, hey, it produces the response. This is precisely what we mean by conversational interface, right? Without writing any kind of code, now for a very simple data set, I'm able to onboard it, and then, I can just ask a whole bunch of questions on this, and there is no limit to it. In terms of what kind of questions we have, right? Let me give you another example for along with what we could do with a really, really large data set. So I have in this platform, there is a whole bunch of data set, which I have onboarded. Let me take another one, which is like a sales data set, right? So it is actually a very large one with close to more than 1 million rows of data. So in this particular case, if I, okay. Say, there is a whole bunch of questions which I've already asked. So, sorry about that. So say, for example, I asked something like, hey, the top 6 states. It now, say if I ask this question, right? So here is an example for a language interface. So since it asks a question on where, right? The application kind of knows that we are referring to a location attribute. So there are three location attributes. Says, hey, when you said where, I found city, state, and region to be. So say, for example, now I said I really meant state. So now what it does is it says, hey, it provides the answer. So our question was really, where did we have the maximum profit in furniture? So it says, since I mentioned it as a state, it says, hey, this is where you had, right? So now, say another question I can give you for as an example for a language interface, right? So say if I so it provides a whole bunch of answers at the same time. Say if I ask this question, okay, so it looks like there was only one. If I ask another one, say for example, if I ask this question, weekly trend of, or compare the sales, and I mean, this is another one, if you really want to do a comparison operation across 2 days, right? So all these kind of questions, now you can just ask on this particular data set, right? It is absolute, I mean, you can imagine with without writing any code, by onboarding this data set in Kia Studio, I mean, it is now able to provide all these answers. Say, another example I can give you, the way we are using Kia, right? That usage itself, which is a data set. Say for example, if I have this, the usage analytics, if I go here, even on the questions, say for example, the question is, hey, the daily trend of the last month, how all these, any data set, I mean, in fact, the point I'm trying to make here is Kia is completely agnostic of the data set. Whatever data, which you just connect to, it just responds back, and it builds a very good understanding of the data attributes and then responds back, right? So the other way, this is one chat interface. So say for example, another feature I really wanted to show you here is, let me take this, pick one of the data set, okay? So which is, okay. So now on this particular one, so I have, I've already invited one of my friends, say for example, I am looking at this and for some reason I find, hey, this data doesn't look correct. Or say, let me ask another question. Okay, so this particular number, it doesn't look right to me. So now, how do we normally resolve these kind of issues? Either we take a screenshot, we email it to somebody, and ask them, call them, and all that. Why can't we converge the discussion, within the platform itself, right? So say, for example, if this is particular one, I'm going to invite, say, one of my team members, say, okay, I'm just waiting for him to respond. Yeah, so Alex is typing. So the idea is, why can't, I mean, now we are just trying to reimagine having a conversation with humans as well as a bot, which in this case is Kia. And so that we work collaboratively on a data issue, and then, we just try to get the answer, and then, we just helps us resolve. So if I ask him, hey, so whatever it is, I mean, I think these kind of conversation, we just engage in. Now there is a context to what we're really talking about. In fact, since I invited him to this, he can also ask questions. He can say that, hey, by the way, let me try to change this. And the three of us, Alex, myself, and Kia, we kind of work on this particular data set, and then, we kind of take decisions collectively. Like that is the whole point about bringing in a conversational interface for data analytics, right? So that's just an example of how potentially where we have really seen this helping some of our customers is it's in the amount of time it takes for us to get access to data, as well as get answers to questions on data and all that. The teams kind of work collaboratively on this. See, the same thing, the Kia could be made available as a bot in any of the other collaboration platforms, whether it is Microsoft Teams, Slack, Chat, Google Meet, and all that. In addition to that, what we've really done is, we have our own, chat interface. This kind of helps the teams, to have conversation around data, right? So this is one way of doing it. Say the other one, which I was telling you, say if I really want to have this conversation on, okay, let me go to here, which is the search interface I was talking to you about. The search interface, it's just like search widget, and whatever questions we just had in the conversation, the chat interface, you just ask it here. The only thing is this widget could be embedded in any of your application. It is just few lines of code. That way, you're able to make use of this, or rather integrate this conversation application with any of your other enterprise app. That's the that's the whole power of it, right? So it is, the only difference is here, the whole thing acts as a bunch of conversations. You have history of whatever the other conversations you had in the past. You can just, or you have an ability to make them as favorite. All these stuff, just like how we save the search history and all that. The only thing is, over a period of time, it's you really don't have to either create new dashboards or create reports. It's just, you onboard the dataset once, and after that, everything happens behind the scenes, in terms of the way in which Kia responds to those questions, right? And as I said, the other version of it is this chat interface, where you can really ask those questions in a very similar to a search kind of interface and all that, right? So there are few other aspects of this application. See, as I said, it is more like, say, you can go and look at the metadata. This is the metadata where I was telling you it supports a complete data glossary management, and where this also called as helps when we are talking about a language interface, right? One common problem with the NL, or the natural language understanding, is to do with synonyms. Different users could refer to the same name in different ways, right? So if there is a particular word, which the application did not understand, you can come and make it as a synonym, and then that's what we really also call this, and then the next time Kia kind of understands it, and then starts responding to that, right? So fundamentally, if I have to go back to the concept, fundamentally the idea is, can we replace the current way of the business intelligence tool with an interface where the users just have an ability to ask questions. It does support say, the other one I can give you is quite a bit of visualizations, and it also responds back in voice when it in the mobile device and all that. And one of the way in which users use this very commonly sits with the voice input. They just click a microphone and talk. We have an implementation done for one of the hospitals. It's a very large pet care chain in the US. The doctors make use of this, for all their conversations or all their information needs with the patient record, on the patient record and all that, right? So voice is one very, very common input, in which this whole application works well. So any questions on this, the demo or the application so far? Okay, so now coming back to the last few slides, right? So see, as I said, what Kia does bring, it's see, as I showed you now, very simple conversation interface, an ability to ask questions in the language you speak, responding back in voice, visuals, and insights. And as I said, the fourth point is also something which is built within the design. There is a lot of ways in which for you to define data controls, role-based access control, and how you take care of PII data and all that, right? So fundamentally, the idea is, how can we really simplify the data access? In fact, the way, or rather the solution is implemented for many of the customers is, how do we, I mean, especially when they have a lot of non-technical users, like the example I told you about the doctors and all that, how can we simplify data access for them, where they just have an ability to ask questions in English, right? It runs on Azure. I mean, by the way, we are AI neutral, but definitely majority of our installations, it runs on Microsoft Azure. Makes you built on top of the Azure Cognitive Services and other components. But definitely, it is platform agnostic. A high-level solution architecture. See, as I said, most of our enterprise implementations are on-prem. It runs within the firewall. We also have an option as a SaaS service, but majority of our implementations, primarily for the data security and our solution kind of runs within the firewall, and then it's deployed within their on-prem cloud environment, right? And more than that, what you see on the left, Kia can connect to pretty much all kinds of data sources, data formats, JSON, XML, Avro, Parquet, CSV, all kinds of data formats is supported, whether it is real-time streaming data, microbatch. So over a period of time, the data Kia just gets trained on the data set, and then it uses the data to provide the answers on those data sets, right? And the channels I just showed you are examples on the chat interface, the search interface, the mobile. We do have a mobile platform, and the whole output from Kia is also available as open APIs. So we also have implementation where they have integrated with other enterprise applications. So where the questions still asked in English are exposed, the question output are exposed as APIs, so that they can be consumed by other applications as well. Right. Quite a bit of customers are already onto this, and then who have played where we have implemented this tool for our customers. And as I said, definitely the fundamental goal of our low-code platform is how do we optimize, or rather accelerate this journey where somebody gets this application up and running in no time, right? Some of the enterprise applications where we really take time is in building the data pipeline. But otherwise, as I said, I showed you in just few mouse clicks, like how we build any dashboard application today, right? Whether it is Power BI, Tableau, or any of those dashboarding tools, how they are built for you to create a metric or a dashboard without writing code. The same experience, we're just trying to replicate for a conversation interface. You just connect a data set, and then in the chat interface, just start asking questions. So that's, at high level, on what today's session is about. Definitely please do reach out to us if there is any interest. We do have option to do, free POCs. We always, any new tool like this, most of the time, we start with, there is a lot of curiosity, a lot of interest, a lot of follow-up questions, and then we usually engage them. Start with a very small POC, which we do it for free, and then which makes them understand more on the solution, and then take it to the next level. So please feel free to reach out to us. And this is a summary, in terms of what Kia is: simple, smart, and secure data analyst. As I said, our approach is fundamentally we are trying to see how, or personally, we feel this could be the evolution of the business intelligence space, where the interface really becomes, or rather, the information is consumed through conversation. All right, the way I would like to call it is, I think conversation could be the future of analytics, just like how we used to do it with fellow human beings. We used to engage in a very meaningful conversation, and then we become more knowledgeable, and then or we use that information. Similar experience, now we have an opportunity to get that done with the computers or with the application software. So we really feel, I think conversation would, not really, it is not, definitely not like a replacement or anything. I think this is one of the new need, mainly because of how we have started consuming information. As I said, being the momentary information needs. Reports and dashboards are there for a purpose. If you have a standard set of KPIs to track, or standard set of reports, which you really want to analyze, I think those are there for a different needs. Similarly, what we really see is for the future, more and more, as we collect more data, what we really see is there is an increasing need of momentary information need, whether you are in an airport, whether you're talking to a customer, whether you are in a meeting. There are points, where we call as the momentary information needs, where we just have a question. In those situations, just like how we would chat with a fellow human being, can we really talk to a data analyst and then virtual data analyst get that answer? That's the idea behind Kia, more for to take care of the need for this Gen Z or our momentary information needs. Yeah, thank you. That's about it. I mean, any questions I can take right now? I hope it was useful or informative. Bharat, are others any questions posted in the chat?
Siva, we have a private question on the NLP capabilities. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of NLP, I'm sorry. Can you just repeat the question again, Bharat?
Now, how good is the NLP capability? Is the question asked?
Okay.
Language understanding. Sorry.
Yeah, this is, I would say, it's one of the first questions we always get asked in conversational AI from many of our customers. How good is it? Hey, all these things sound okay. How good is it? How real it is, right? See, in fact, with many of the vendor language understanding and speech recognition software, it's very close to human comprehension levels. We have seen results of very, very good accuracy with this, and there are ways to achieve it. Say, for example, especially when it relates to language understanding, the common challenges around what we call as domain-specific vocabulary. If it is in the healthcare field, it could be the drug names, the medicine names, or the medical conditions and all that. Or if it could be in a banking domain or in an insurance domain, they all have their own custom vocabulary. What we do is, we build this domain-specific vocabulary models, and then, we train Kia on those so that it becomes that much more good in that language understanding for that particular domain. That's the way we achieve it. But definitely, I would say, these language understanding results have been very, very good these days. The technology is very much mature, and also with respect to the cost factor, I think both the speech as well as the language understanding technologies are highly commoditized to offer very, very competitive total cost of ownership.
Thanks, we don't have further questions as such in the chat.
All right. Maybe just one last one. I mean, if there are any questions, please feel free to post it in the chat, or otherwise, we are almost done. All right, everybody. Thank you. I hope it was useful. Thanks for your time today, and hopefully we'll connect again. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.